Sup y'all, it's me, it's your boy Asmongold, and today I'm going to be doing something that a lot of you guys have been asking me for, and I'm going to be going over all of the different talents, and also both of the DPS specs. I'm not going to go over Gladiator spec because that's pretty complex, and also it's not stemming as highly as Arms or Fury. And so the first thing I'm going to be going over here is the Arms spec, and I'm going to be using the two important things I'm going to be using here are Slam and Ravager. Now, Ravager is not really the best talent to use for a single target, but I did want to add it in there just so you guys know what it's like. Ravager is kind of a little bit better for Arms than it is for Fury, and the reason for that is that pretty much like, for one, whenever you're Fury, you have Siegebreaker, and that hits with both weapons, and obviously whenever you're Arms, that's only hitting with one weapon. And another thing is you can also put down Ravager while you have Colossus Smash up, because Colossus Smash is still available to Fury Warriors, or sorry, Arms Warriors in Warlords of Draenor. Now, the way that the Arms rotation pretty much works is that you've got just a few abilities. You've got Mortal Strike, which you should be using on cooldown, Colossus Smash, which you should use on cooldown again. You want to use it like right whenever Mortal Strike is off cooldown, because your tier bonus is going to give you a chance to cut your cooldown on Mortal Strike in half, and Mortal Strike is your heaviest hitting ability, and so if you can get 2 Mortal Strikes in within a Colossus Smash, that's going to really boost your damage up a lot. Outside of that, you have Rend. They brought back Rend, and what Rend pretty much is now is it's just a dot that you apply. Unfortunately, you actually do have to manually apply it. I was hoping that it could be applied through, I don't know, like Mortal Strike or Thunderclap or something like that, but it doesn't really seem like they're going to be doing that. Hopefully they will, but we'll see about that. Rend is a little bit different than it used to be. Rend now does like a burst of damage. It like pretty much does as much damage as like a Mortal Strike whenever it goes away. And don't worry about overwriting it, because what they said is they're going to be doing a thing where I don't know if you guys ever played a mage, like a Living Bomb. The way that works is that if you refresh Living Bomb before it goes away, it will still explode. It's just added onto the duration, and so that is a good thing, by the way. And so that makes it a little bit easier to play. Outside of that, if you don't have Slam in your rotation, or you don't pick that talent, you'll either be picking what's it called? Taste for Blood, which gives Rend 3. You get 3 rage every single time Rend does damage. I didn't even go over that in this video because I didn't really think it was that great. The only time that you really want to be using Rend, the Taste for Blood Rend thing, and there's my damage breakdown, guys, by the way. And so again, this is with the Slam, and I'm also I used what's it called, Blade Storm for this, but you could honestly just use Bloodbath, and so you could increase, like, add another, like, I'd say like 5% more damage. And that's about how much Bloodthirst does. And so you guys can pretty much see that. And also, I use Slam and Ravager. And so I'm pretty sure, I don't really know. Oh yeah, I was like showing 2 of them. In a second here, I'll show you guys what how much Ravager did. It was a very small amount of damage. And so again, you probably don't really want to be using that for a single target. But in my opinion, as long as you have 2 targets, you probably should be using Ravager, because it seems to be a little bit better. And if you are not using Slam, what you should be using as a filler is Whirlwind. And so there's my Ravager. As you can see, it does a little bit more damage, a little bit less damage than Colossus Smash. And you guys know Colossus Smash is a very small amount of your damage, and so it's not very important. That's my Fury damage breakdown. Now, the thing with Fury right now is it's Sudden Death, if you guys saw that. Sudden Death now procs. You have a 20% chance to proc Sudden Death. And Sudden Death gives you a free execute, but the execute doesn't do, like, execute consumes extra rage, and so the execute does not consume extra rage if you proc it with Sudden Death. And so that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's mostly a bad thing, but unfortunately I'm not really surprised that they did that, because Sudden Death was sitting for like 300k at the beginning of the beta. And so, anyway, this test is going to be done with, with Sudden Death and with Siegebreaker. And so Siegebreaker is like pretty much, it deals about the same amount of damage that you would expect to deal with Stormbolt with Colossus Smash up now as Fury, and so it's a very, very heavy hitting attack. And so you want to be using Siegebreaker within Colossus Smash all the time, and that's really the only I guess like limitation on Siegebreaker, when you should really be using it. Now this, I kind of prefer a little bit more. What's good about this is that whenever you're doing an AoE fight, you definitely do not want to have Slam, because the reason for that is Whirlwind does do a pretty good amount of damage, and so whenever you have a rotational ability that does AoE damage, you're just going to be doing strong AoE damage in general because of just the way that the game works. That's always just been the way it was. Whenever warriors are strongest in AoE damage is usually whenever you use rotational abilities that also function as AoE abilities. And so anyway, as you can see here, I'm putting down Colossus Smash, and immediately I do a Mortal Strike, and then I do a Siege Breaker. And so that's pretty much the ideal way to do it. If you're using the Slam thing, the Colossus Smash rotation is you just Colossus Smash, and then Mortal Strike, and then Slam as many times as you can until you either run out of rage or Colossus Smash goes away. I'm kind of trying to, I'm not really sure exactly which one is going to be better, if Sudden Death is going to be better than Slam or not. I was looking at some DPS parses, and it's looking to me, if I remember correctly, I think Sudden Death was parsing the highest for both specs, but Sudden Death is extremely strong for Fury, and not very strong at all for Arms. It just does a lot less damage. And so the reason for that is that because whenever you have Fury, your Fury spec, Execute hits with both weapons now, and so it's like you're pretty much proccing like a Colossus Smash Stormbolt, to put that into perspective. Or it does like, honestly, it probably does more damage than Siege Breaker does. And so I would not really be surprised if Execute got nerfed, because it does seem a little bit silly. Because one thing that I don't really like about Warriors right now, especially as Fury, is that there are so many things that are completely based on a chance. And like an example for this is that you've obviously got the chance of, if your Bloodthirst crits, you get two things. You get your Enrage, which increases your damage equivalent to your Mastery, and that lasts for 8 seconds now. And so that's kind of good, because if you don't crit a Bloodthirst, you kind of have to not crit 2 in a row for you to really just not have any Enrage at all. And also another thing is that you also can sometimes proc Blood Surge, and so if you don't proc Blood Surge, if you don't proc a crit, and if you don't have Sudden Death proc or anything like that, it's very proc-based, obviously. And so I really don't like that, because sometimes you'll be doing amazing damage as Fury, and sometimes you'll be doing terrible damage. There's my damage breakdown for Sudden Death, and as you can see, Whirlwind is kind of taking the place of Slam, and Execute's just kind of added in there. Now, Siege Breaker also is doing a pretty good amount of damage. It's doing probably more than than Ravager would, and that's also very important. Siege Breaker is one of the things that you kind of have to plan on, I guess, like using within Colossus Smash. Like that's one of the things you just don't want to just kind of completely face roll. And those are my damage breakdowns for each different class. And I think now I'm going to go over to Fury. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I'm going to go over to Fury. And so Fury is a little bit different here, because as you guys know, the Sudden Death thing, every single time that you hit, you have a 20% chance of gaining an Execute. Basically, you can get a free Execute. And Execute does ridiculous fucking damage. And so whenever you hit more often, you get more Executes. They also buff Single-Minded Fury from 20% damage bonus to 30% damage bonus. And so that makes Fury, as Single-Minded Fury, extremely, extremely good, especially with Sudden Death. If you have Sudden Death and you're not if you're Single-Minded Fury and you're not using Sudden Death, you're probably doing something wrong. Now, Furious Strikes is the one to the right, or to the left, and I didn't really go over that one either, because I don't really think it's very good. Furious Strikes pretty much just makes your Wild Strikes cost 25 less rage. Wild Strike costs 45 rage normally, and so it makes them cost 20 rage. Now, this is not really that great, and it's okay, but it's not better than the other two choices, and so it's by far the most inferior choice of the three. Now, as Fury, it's a lot the same in terms of the rotation here, as with Arms. It's just pretty much, or as on Live, and kind of with Arms. I don't know, they are a lot the same. You pretty much want to pop Recklessness as soon as you can, and then you want to, as soon as you get an Enraged stack, you pretty much want to go ahead and use Siege Breaker, and then use Execute literally as soon as it pops up. Like, if you have an Execute pop up, use it immediately. And the reason for that is that you can have another one pop up like 1 second after that. And if you miss an Execute proc, like, that's a lot of missed damage, a lot of lost damage. As you can see, I'm doing significantly more damage now than I was as Arms. Anyway, as you can see, like right now, this is what I'm talking about. This is what pisses me off, is that, see, if you don't, like, the entire spec is based around Bloodthirst, and people say, well, you can use Unquenchable Fury and Unquenchable Thirst, whatever, and what that does is that makes Bloodthirst have no cooldown. But the fact of the matter is, because Execute is so strong right now, it's not even worth using it, because Execute can just do so much ridiculous damage that if you're not using that, it's just a huge waste of damage. And so, like, watch this Execute here. I'm doing like 40,000 damage with one attack, and it's free. And it procs 20%, it's a 20% chance of proccing every single time an attack. And so, in general, what I would suggest for people to go with for Fury, I would suggest them to go with at level 90, because you guys won't have obviously Siegebreaker or anything like that. I would suggest basically going with Sudden Death, and also going with either probably, I don't know, like Bloodbath is pretty good, and I'm not really entirely sure if it's better than, I'm pretty sure it's better than Bladestorm in single target, because Bloodbath does add a pretty good amount of damage, and you guys will see that. Now Bladestorm, you can obviously use it as a rotational ability, same as you do on live whenever you don't have anything else up, but it's not really that useful to do. It's a very small minimal DPS increase, whereas was it Bloodbath just doesn't really, it's just a lot better, I think, personally. Now, I looked at some sims, and as I said before, what was simming the highest at level 90 was Fury with Sudden Death, and that's with two-handed weapons. And the reason for that is you just get so many different stats. You get so much more stats. You can almost get to crit cap, even with 30% Bloodthirst, because for whatever reason, we just get more of a critical strike chance whenever the patch comes out. I think it's because of the damage changes and the gear changes. And I think the humans actually get a critical strike boost too on their own, but I'm not entirely sure. Now, in terms of using Bloodthirst, like what you should use after you cast Bloodthirst, you want to be using Raging Blow pretty much to prevent your Rage Cap, and you really only want to use, you should be using Wild Strike to prevent your Rage Cap, and you only want to really be using Raging Blow if you already have one stack of it. You don't want to obviously get 3 stacks, but having 2 stacks is fine. And so there's the damage breakdown right here. As you can see, Execute is a huge amount of my damage, and also I say, like, even the offhand is a huge amount of my damage too. Like, if you put both of those together, they would probably be my highest damage in total. And my auto attack is very high as well. And so after this, I think I'm going to go to, yeah, I think I'm going to use Titan's Grip here. And Titan's Grip, I kind of, in a way, I like Titan's Grip just because it's way more manly. But at the same time, it's kind of a little bit annoying to not have those procs, and also single-minded Fury just does a lot more damage, it seems, or at least like on the non-weapon damage procced, or non-weapon damage based attacks. Now this one here is pretty much going to be with the same different talents, or same talents, but just with the different weapons. And as you can see, I've got a lot of Raging Blow procs, and Berserker Rage, the way Berserker Rage works right now is that it's not, it doesn't really give you rage, I don't think, but what it does do is it gives you an enraged stack, and so you want to use Berserker Rage a lot more intelligently than you probably are right now. Like, if you're like me, I just pretty much mash that button as soon as it's up, and I don't ever really think about it. Occasionally I do use it strategically, but it's very rare. And so pretty much you want to be saving Berserker Rage until you don't have an enraged stack to kind of get through that damage lull, because it's more important to always have an enraged up rather than just like using it on cooldown. At least that's what it seems like to me. I'm not really sure exactly what's going to be our talent choices, I guess you could say. The like what's going to be the best talent, the worst talent, etc. Or stat priority, not talent. I keep confusing myself. I would say probably the best choice you would probably go with is either probably crit still. I'm not entirely sure. Mastery is very good, but the problem with Mastery again is that Mastery is very good for arms, by the way, because it's a flat damage boost for Mortal Strike, Colossus Smash, and Execute. And so I'm surprised that they haven't changed that, because it reminds me a lot of the Frost Mastery in 5.2, where it just straight up increased frost damage for Frost Mages, and it just became ridiculous. And so I wouldn't be surprised if it got changed or nerfed, but we'll see about that. But as you can see here, one thing that's good about about using Titan's Grip is that a lot of your abilities do hit harder because you're obviously using two-handed weapons, but the main downside is that you're not going to have as many sudden death procs. And as I said before, like, it's really annoying to me. like this spec now, because it seems like it's even more proc based than it is on live, because in order to make it not proc based, you have to sacrifice so much that it's really not worth it. And so you sit here and it's like right now it's like I get that one spell and you have to like use Blade Storm as a rotational ability. Another thing, guys, that you can do, I probably should have been doing this in this video, but I didn't. You should probably be using Impending Victory as your I guess like healing talent line bar. I guess it's like, was it level 30? I think, I'm not really sure. And you should be using that because it's 10 rage and it's a free attack, and it's about half as strong. It's like I guess like 66%, like 2/3 as strong as Wild Strike. And so it's not really terrible, but it's not very good either, but it kind of can get you through just like sitting there auto attacking, which I think kind of sucks. As you can see, 18k DPS, mildly average. Like, I'm not really impressed with that. I made a lot of rotational mistakes in this, but at the same time, almost everybody's going to make rotational mistakes, and so you can't really always say that, you know, oh, if you press everything correctly, it's going to work. That's usually just not the way it goes. Now, here I'm going to be starting with Bloodbath, and Bloodbath is going to be making me do like a lot more single target damage, and the only thing that sucks is I won't be able to have Blade Storm as a filler ability. And so again, you charge in there and pretty much cast all of your abilities. As soon as your procs are up, you use Siegebreaker. Siegebreaker is going to be a very high damage ability. And in this very like beginning stage, like it's very important that you proc as many sudden deaths as possible. See, like right there, I proc 2 sudden deaths, and you know, I procced a bunch of sudden deaths. I'm doing 50,000 DPS, and so again, like there are all these procs that can happen. There's like the proc that you can have the Bloodthirst crit, and then that's Raging Blow, and then Blood Surge, which is the we call it Wild Strike, and then there's Sudden Death, and so there's a lot of different things that can happen. So Fury has the potential to do like unbelievably like godly damage, and it also has the potential to just be terrible, right? And so this is going to remind me a lot, I think, of the first tier in Mists of Pandaria, where warriors could sometimes do amazing damage, and warriors could also sometimes do just absolute just dog shit damage. And so it is kind of frustrating that that's the case, but I'm not really surprised that that's happening because, you know, I think that they're kind of planning for later on in the expansion whenever people get more gear. Like right now, what do I have to do? I got 1 sudden death proc. If I didn't get that, I would have had nothing. And so it's extremely annoying. Now, guys, I know that you guys are probably just wondering, like, you just want to get to the bottom of it. What the fuck should I play, right? Honestly, I would say you should probably play, if you've got really good gear, I'd say just stick with what you have and keep playing what you have. Fury is going to be a little bit better than Arms. At the beginning, at level 100, I think Arms is going to be a little bit better. And the reason for that is that Arms is not really as reliant on gear as Fury is. And so you can pretty much expect Arms to be a little bit better. But at higher gear levels, I think Fury will overtake it whenever you can more or less rely on keeping Enrage up full time. And whenever Enrage is able to be kept up full time, obviously you're going to be gaining just flat pretty much like whatever your mastery percentage is. And so it's very good. The sudden death right now is probably the strongest part about the spec and about warriors in general. Like if we didn't have sudden death, warriors would be pretty much fucking terrible. And so anyway, sudden death is like, it's just like this really OP, amazing ability. And so I will not be surprised if they get nerfed it. Like right now, watch. What do I have to do? What do I have to do? Nothing. I have nothing to do. I just sit there and auto attack until Bloodthirst comes back up. And if Bloodthirst didn't crit that time, I could have done nothing for another like 5 seconds. And so it's annoying. It bothers me a lot, but I'm not really too upset about it. Now, I did see on DPS charts that showed warriors as out of the top 7 DPS specs at level 100, warriors were 4 of them, and that's great. The only thing is that I wish they were all 7. But I don't think we have that many specs yet, so hopefully in the future we can get there. But warriors are very good. They're performing a lot better than most other classes, and so right now I would say make sure that you go with Sudden Death if you're Fury, and a Sudden Death and what's it called, Slam are kind of a toss-up as Arms. And obviously you want to be using Sudden Death whenever it's an AoE fight, and Slam whenever it's a single target fight, if you really want to think about it that way. There's my damage breakdown for that time. And as you can see, Siegebreaker is doing a pretty good amount of damage, and so is, let's see, Execute isn't really doing all that much. I'm not really sure why. I think I just didn't get as many procs. But anyway, guys, that's really pretty much all I've got. If you guys have any questions about the different talents, just go ahead and leave me a comment and let me know. I haven't tested everything, and I'll probably do one about gladiators eventually, but there have been some other things that I've wanted to get to first. But this is just pretty much the talent overviews and what I think are the best talents so far. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I've got. Thanks for watching, and comment, subscribe.